EFRWS 2021 was held immediately after the COVID, gathering 300 attendants and 40 speakers. The main message coming from our last event is that in Europe there are many ways to regulate the water sector from an environmental and economic point of view. The various types of regulatory models currently in place are strictly connected to local, regional and national rules adopted in every country. The last forum highlighted the role that independent regulators are playing to assure compliance with relevant EU laws, especially in countries which have been lagging behind in meeting the EU targets. Compliance with EU water legislation has significantly increased in these countries since water regulators started to operate there. Beginning from the data published by the European Environmental Agency, we reported that since 2014, the lack of compliance of European water countries to EU requirements on wastewater collection dropped by 44%, while failure to meet requirements on biological treatment and nutrient removal decreased by 66% and 22% respectively. In other words, water regulatory authorities have led to greater compliance with EU regulation. A lot of work has been done to improve the quality of water services, and now for regulators it's time to address the new challenges stemming from the EU's policies for climate change and respond with effective regulatory tools to promote environmental sustainability. In October 2022, the European Commission presented a proposal to revise the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. This directive has led to a significant reduction of pollution caused by wastewater discharge from urban sources. And the proposal addresses shortcomings and new challenges, provides new limits value to reduce pollution for urban sources, and aims to reach an energy neutrality objective in line with the European Green Deal. Furthermore, it provides rules to improve disclosure and transparency for citizens. The explanatory memorandum of the proposal forecasts an implementation cost of 3.8 billion euros per year, below the expected monetized benefits. These additional costs would be covered by a combination of water tariff, public fund, and the extended producer responsibility mechanism. The proposal forecasts an average increase in tariff of 2.26% in the EU. Wareg has conducted a survey among its associates to evaluate the potential of tariff increases of the proposal. Evidence will be shown and discussed in the first session of this forum. Besides our agreement of the proposal, here I have to highlight that the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive could have institutionalized the role of economic regulators at EU level or even of regulatory toolkits. In this way, it would assure a higher degree of standardization during the implementation phase, giving more stability to water governance, which is often reviewed by national initiatives. So, it is a missed opportunity, but there will be others since the importance of water at EU level. After COVID, a new dramatic experience gave us the opportunity to learn new lessons. The Ukraine war raised the issue of energy costs incurred by water utilities and impacts on tariff and water bills paid by households. With the rise of prices, energy procurement has become a strategic process also for the water sector, and regulations should be improved to properly stimulate its efficiency. It takes a war to remind us of the importance of energy cost even for the water sector despite its high energy consumption. So the lesson definitely learned from the 2022 Ukraine crisis is that energy is going to be an issue which is not only affecting the sector now, but will also do so even into the future. For this reason, the second session of this forum will be focused on climate neutrality as well as on water energy nexus. Wareg dedicated a part of the last forum to these topics. In this third edition, we will have a discussion on a study commissioned to the Florence School of Regulation to recognize best practices in terms of policies and regulatory action to boost the orientation toward these ambitious goals. Although each EU member state is free to decide the role and powers of its regulator in order to meet the EU decarbonization goals, some water authorities are acting as first movers and have already developed incentives tariffs to cover new circular economy practices in the water industry. The Italian authority, for instance, is going to publish a tariff methodology for the next regulatory period, which will allow the recovery costs incurred for energy self-production at utility scale by a valorization of a self-produced kilowatt-hour with an energy market price. For this issue, we emphasize the relevance of the recognition of the role of regulators, since a clear mandate assigned by EU laws to Wareg members, also for climate and energy neutrality, could accelerate the swift achievement of such ambitious goals. In the last session, we will present a Wareg report on KPIs, key performance indicator in Europe, based on the process of performance monitoring and measurement of efficiency and quality adopted by our members. The analysis describes how Wareg member countries are measuring the performance of water utilities and according to which perspective indicators are used. Among several perspectives where water performance could be measured, service coverage, service quality, environment, asset efficiency, economic efficiency, only a few countries measure all the 5 perspectives of indicators identified. And the economic efficiency is the most widespread perspective, also with the highest number of indicators measured. So the prevalence of the economic issue for water regulator is to the detriment of monitoring of other categories such as quality. Then our service shows a low degree of standardization and uniformity among countries in terms of KPIs adopted. Despite these differences, some categories of indicators which have been detailed by the EU legislation, I refer to water quality and wastewater treatment quality, are measured in a similar way. This comes from the uniformity of parameters given by EU legislation for Drinking Water Directive and Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive. Lastly, there is a lack of consistency with the new orientation of EU legislation, such as the measurement of water losses, with the regulators more oriented toward non-revenue water instead of ILI index that is favored by the Drinking Water Directive. Secondly, only a small number of countries is measuring energy efficiency and energy neutrality. And finally, there is a lack of regulatory indicators on the risk-based approach for drought and compliance with quality standards. So, on this last point, Europe has been affected by a severe water drought in the last years, with impacts in the southern countries mainly concerning the water availability for agriculture and hydropower plants. Even if the water supplied by public sector has been only partially hit by water shortages with few cases of interruption of services, the absence of indicators of resilience, vulnerability and affordability of water sources must be without fail overcome in the next years by regulators. So, following an integrated approach which joins all water sources and different uses, the regulator should start to measure the performance of water suppliers with 3 criteria: the likelihood of shortages in water sources, that is reliability, how quickly they recover from failure, resilience, and how severe the consequences of failure may be, vulnerability. Beginning from the welcomed resilience initiative announced by the European Commission President in her last State of the Union speech, an integrated European policy will be effective if all institutional actors work together to form a common base of rules, data as well as cross-sectoral approach, joining different types of water consumptions. So, I thank you for staying here. I wish to you a very fruitful conference. And now I give the floor to the Commissioner Sinkevicius that leave us a video message.